Ma'am, I've heard enough. Do you understand how a courtroom works? The gavel cracked twice. Marissa Lange stood at the wooden podium, manila folder unopened in her hands. Judge Harlan Trask leaned forward on the bench, gray hair slicked back, black robe sharp against the afternoon light through the high windows. His mouth curved, not quite a smile, not quite a sneer. Your Honor, I'd like to present. What you'd like is irrelevant. Trask waved one hand as if brushing away a fly. The courtroom gallery, 11 people scattered across 20 rows, shifted in their seats. Marissa didn't move. Her pen clicked once, twice. She opened the folder just wide enough to reveal the first page, a printed copy of the Code of Judicial Conduct, Canon 2.3b highlighted in yellow. She'd photographed it from the placard mounted near the courthouse entrance that morning. What Judge Trask didn't know, what the smirking bailiff standing 3 feet to his left didn't know, was that the woman he'd just dismissed had spent the last 18 months investigating judges across the state. And she'd just added his name to a very short list. If you're enjoying this story, please like this video and subscribe. It helps us bring you more content like this. Marissa set the folder on the podium. Her voice stayed level. I'm simply asking for the opportunity to present evidence regarding a traffic citation that contains factual errors. Officers don't make mistakes. Trask's tone sharpened. The bailiff, name tag reading Rayburn, straightened his posture, hand drifting toward the radio clipped to his belt. Marissa noted the movement without looking directly at him. She'd learned that in her first month on the Judicial Qualifications Commission, predators telegraph their intentions through body language before words catch up. Your Honor, the citation lists the violation as failure to signal on Route 47 at 2:15 p.m. on March 12th. I have dashcam footage showing... Dashcam footage. Trask repeated the words slowly, as if tasting something sour. A man in the front row, white, mid-50s, wearing a wrinkled suit, laughed under his breath. The judge's eyes flicked toward him, then back to Marissa. You've been watching too much television, ma'am. This is a $450 fine for a traffic violation. You're wasting the court's time with television drama. Marissa's pen moved across the top of the first page in her folder. She wrote the time, 2:47 p.m., and a single word, dismissive. No emotion in her face, no frustration in her shoulders. Just the quiet precision of someone who documented 43 judicial misconduct complaints in 3 years and knew exactly which details mattered. I'm not trying to waste anyone's time, Your Honor. I'm exercising my right under state procedural rules to... Your rights are what I say they are in my courtroom. The words hung in the air for 3 seconds. The court reporter, a thin woman with gray streaks in her dark hair, fingers poised over the stenography machine, looked up briefly, then back down. Her hands kept moving. Marissa made a mental note of that. The reporter had heard this before. Your Honor, with respect, that's not an accurate statement of guilty. $450 plus court costs. Total is $537. You have 30 days to pay or your license will be suspended. The gavel came down once. Final. Marissa didn't move from the podium. She turned to the second page in her folder, a blank incident report form she'd printed from the courthouse website. She began filling it out while standing there, pen moving in neat block letters across the top section. Date, time, location, presiding official. Bailiff Rayburn took 2 steps forward. Ma'am, you need to exit the courtroom. Now. His voice carried the kind of authority that expected immediate compliance. Marissa finished writing the case number, 2024-TR-9033, before looking up. I'd like to file a motion for reconsideration based on denial of due process under the 14th Amendment. Trask's face went rigid. The man in the wrinkled suit stopped smiling. The bailiff's hand moved to his radio. Motion denied. Your Honor, I haven't submitted the written motion yet. Under state rules of civil procedure. Bailiff. Trask didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Rayburn closed the distance to the podium in 4 strides. His hand landed on Marissa's left elbow. Not grabbing, not yet, just pressure. A warning. "Let's go, ma'am. Don't make this difficult." Marissa looked down at the hand on her arm, then at the bailiff's face, then at Judge Trask, who was already shuffling papers for the next case as if she'd ceased to exist. "I'm leaving voluntarily. You can remove your hand." She said it quietly. No challenge in her tone, just a statement of fact. Rayburn's fingers tightened for half a second, enough to leave pressure marks on the fabric of her sleeve, before releasing. Marissa closed her folder, tucked her pen into the inside pocket of her blazer, and walked toward the courtroom exit at an unhurried pace. Behind her, she heard Trask call the next case. Docket number 2024-TR-9197, State v. Michael Pemberton. A white man in his 30s stood from the gallery and approached the podium. Marissa paused at the door, half-turned. She watched Trask lean back in his chair, expression softening into something almost friendly. "Mr. Pemberton, good afternoon. I see you're here regarding a speeding citation. Let's hear what happened." The contrast took 4 seconds. That was all Marissa needed. She pulled out her phone, opened the voice memo app, and quietly dictated 3 observations while standing in the hallway outside the courtroom. March 19th, 2:49 p.m. Judge Harlan Trask, Courtroom 3, refused to allow presentation of evidence in case 2024-TR-9033. Interrupted defendant 6 times in 90 seconds. Rendered summary judgment without evidentiary hearing. Subsequent case, white male defendant, similar violation, greeted with courtesy, allowed to speak uninterrupted. She stopped the recording, saved it with the case number as the file name. Then she walked down the marble hallway toward the clerk's office, passing beneath the mounted bronze placard that read, Code of Judicial Conduct. Canon 2.3. A judge shall perform the duties of judicial office without bias or prejudice. A judge shall not, in the performance of judicial duties by words or conduct, manifest bias or prejudice based upon race, sex, gender, religion, national origin, ethnicity, disability, age, sexual orientation, marital status, socioeconomic status, or political affiliation. Marissa stopped, pulled out her phone, photographed the placard with the timestamp visible in the corner. Then she continued walking. The clerk's office sat at the end of the hall, glass door, fluorescent lights, 3 desks arranged in a U-shape. A blonde woman in her 40s looked up from a computer screen as Marissa entered. Her name tag read, Voss S., Court Administrator. "Can I help you?" The tone suggested the opposite. Marissa approached the counter. "I need to file a formal complaint regarding courtroom proceedings." Sienna Voss's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or just fatigue. "Complain about what?" "Judicial conduct, specifically denial of due process and bias in the application of procedural rules." Voss set down her pen, folded her hands on the desk. "Ma'am, if you're unhappy with a ruling, the appropriate remedy is to file an appeal, not a complaint. We don't relitigate cases through the complaint process." "I'm not relitigating. I'm documenting a pattern of behavior that violates the Code of Judicial Conduct." "A pattern?" Voss said it flatly, without inflection. Marissa met her gaze without blinking. "Yes, I observed disparate treatment in 2 consecutive cases this afternoon. I'd like to request transcripts for both proceedings and security camera footage from Courtroom 3 between 2:30 and 3 p.m. today." Voss's fingers drummed once against the desk. Then she reached into a drawer, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and slid it across the counter. "Fill this out. Submit it to the address at the bottom. Processing time is 6 to 8 weeks for transcript requests. Security footage requests require a separate form and a filing fee of $75. Marissa picked up the paper, scanned it. The form was labeled Request for Court Records. Civil cases. Nothing about judicial complaints. "This is a records request form. I asked for a complaint form." "That's the form we use." "For complaints about judicial conduct?" for any request related to court proceedings. The answer was smooth, practiced. Marissa pulled out her phone again, opened the state judiciary website, and navigated to the section titled Judicial Conduct Complaints. She turned the screen toward Voss. According to the state judiciary's own website, complaints about judges are handled through a separate process administered by the Judicial Qualifications Commission. The form is available online, but it can also be submitted in person at any courthouse. Is that not accurate? Voss glanced at the phone screen. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You can file online if you prefer. I'd prefer to file in person, today. We don't keep those forms here. The website says they're available at all courthouses. We're out of stock. Marissa lowered her phone. She didn't argue, didn't raise her voice. She simply took out her folder, removed the blank incident report form she'd been filling out in the courtroom, and wrote a single sentence at the bottom. Clerk S. Voss stated JQC complaint forms unavailable in person, despite state policy requiring courthouse access. March 19th, 2:54 p.m. She photographed the page. Then she looked back at Voss. I'll file online, but I'll also be noting in my submission that the courthouse failed to provide the required forms when requested. Voss's expression flickered, just for a second, into something harder. Ma'am, if you're going to file a complaint every time you lose a case, people might start to think you have an agenda. Marissa closed her folder. I don't have an agenda. I have documentation. She turned and walked out before Voss could respond. The parking lot sprawled across 2 acres of cracked asphalt behind the courthouse. Marissa's car, a 10-year-old sedan with a dent in the rear bumper, sat in the 3rd row, beneath an oak tree that provided partial shade in the afternoon heat. She unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, and sat for 30 seconds without starting the engine. Then she opened her folder and reviewed everything she'd written. 3 pages of notes. Timestamps, direct quotes, observations about body language, tone, procedural violations. She added one more line at the bottom of the 3rd page. Preliminary assessment. Judge Trask exhibits pattern consistent with racial and gender bias. Requires further documentation before formal filing. She photographed all 3 pages. Uploaded them to a password-protected cloud folder labeled by case number. Then she started the engine and drove home. 2 weeks earlier, Marissa had been pulling weeds in her front yard when the police cruiser rolled to a stop at the curb. The afternoon sun sat low over the neighborhood. Modest single-story houses, chain-link fences, a few kids riding bikes in the distance. She'd been living there for 6 years. Quiet street. No trouble. The officer stepped out of the cruiser slowly, one hand resting on his belt near the radio. White man, early 30s, buzz cut, name tag reading Hutchins, D. He approached the edge of her lawn and stopped 6 feet away. Afternoon, ma'am. Marissa stood up, gardening gloves still on, holding a trowel. She set it down on the grass. Good afternoon, officer. You live here? The question came without preamble, no explanation for why he was asking. Marissa kept her voice even. Yes, is there a problem? We received a call about suspicious activity in the area. Can I see some identification? Marissa pulled off her gloves, walked toward the house. Hutchins's hand moved to his gun, not drawing it, just touching the grip. She noticed but didn't react. She retrieved her driver's license from her purse inside the front door and brought it back to the lawn. Hutchins took the license, studied it for longer than necessary, looked at her face, then back at the card, then at the house number mounted beside the front door. This your current address? Yes. You own or rent? I own. His eyes flicked to the yard, neatly trimmed grass, flower beds along the walkway, a small vegetable garden on the side. Then back to her. How long you been here? 6 years. Uh-huh. He handed back the license. Didn't apologize for the intrusion. Didn't explain what the suspicious activity was supposed to be. Just turned and walked back to his cruiser, got in, and sat there for another 10 minutes while Marissa returned to her weeding. She could see him in the side mirror of his vehicle, watching her. When he finally drove away, she went inside and filed a mental note. Officer D. Hutchins, badge unknown, questioned her presence in her own yard without cause. No citation issued, no explanation given. A week later, the citation arrived in the mail. Notice of violation. Case number 2024-TR-9033. Violation, failure to signal. Route 47, mile marker 14. Date/time, March 12, 2:15 p.m. Fine, $450. Marissa read it 3 times. She hadn't been on Route 47 on March 12th. She'd been at a quarterly meeting in the state capitol, 90 miles in the opposite direction, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. She had the meeting minutes, the sign-in sheet, and a parking receipt time-stamped at 1:47 p.m. She called the number listed on the citation. An automated system answered, offering options to pay online or contest in court. She selected contest. A human voice came on the line, bored, rehearsed. You'll need to appear at the courthouse on the date listed. Bring all relevant documents. Can I submit evidence in advance? You can bring it to the hearing. Is there a process for disputing the citation based on impossible timeline? You can explain that to the judge. The line went dead. Marissa sat at her kitchen table and opened her laptop. She pulled up the state traffic code section cited on the notice. Failure to signal within 100 feet of a turn. Standard violation. But the location and time were fabricated. She checked her calendar, her bank statements, her phone's location history. Everything confirmed she'd been nowhere near Route 47 that day. She drafted a motion to dismiss, cited the evidence, attached copies of the meeting minutes and parking receipt, sent it to the courthouse via certified mail. No response. 3 days before the scheduled hearing, she received a second notice. Her motion had been received and filed. No ruling, no indication whether the judge would consider it. Just an instruction to appear as scheduled. So she did. The night before the hearing, Marissa sat in her small home office and reviewed her notes. The room was spare. Desk, chair, filing cabinet, a single bookshelf lined with legal reference texts and 3-ring binders labeled by year. One binder sat open on the desk. Judicial Qualifications Commission. Case Log 2023 to 2024. She flipped through the pages. 43 complaints investigated. 27 dismissed for lack of evidence. 11 settled through private admonishment. 4 resulted in public sanctions. 1 led to a judge's resignation before the hearing. Her own case, if she decided to file, would be number 44. She pulled out a legal pad and began writing. Not a complaint. Not yet. Just preliminary observations. Questions she needed to answer before moving forward. 1. Does Judge Trask exhibit pattern behavior, or is this isolated? 2. Are other litigants experiencing similar treatment? 3. Is there documentation beyond my own testimony? She underlined the third question twice. The commission required clear and convincing evidence. One person's word against a sitting judge wasn't enough. She needed transcripts, video, witness statements, a pattern that couldn't be dismissed as misunderstanding or bad day. She closed the binder, looked at the framed certificate on the wall above her desk. State Judicial Qualifications Commission. This certifies that Marissa Lange has been appointed by the governor to serve as commissioner for a term of 3 years, commencing January 1, 2023. She'd been a commissioner for 15 months. In that time, she'd learned how carefully the system protected itself. Judges investigated judges. Lawyers defended lawyers. The entire structure was designed to filter out noise. But sometimes, it filtered out truth. She wasn't naive. She knew what filing a complaint against Trask would mean. Scrutiny, pushback, whispers that she was abusing her position. But she also knew what not filing would mean. One more judge who believed he could treat people however he wanted, as long as those people didn't have power. Marissa picked up her pen and added one more line to the legal pad. Attend hearing, observe, document, decide. Then she turned off the desk lamp and went to bed. The hearing took 7 minutes. Marissa counted. From the moment Judge Trask called her case to the moment the gavel fell, 7 minutes. In that time, she was interrupted 6 times, dismissed twice, and threatened with contempt once. The bailiff touched her arm. The gallery laughed at her, and the next defendant, white, male, similar violation, received a reduction to $50 and an apology for the inconvenience. She documented all of it. Now she sat in her car in the courthouse parking lot, reviewing her notes one more time before making a decision. Her phone buzzed. A text from her supervisor at the nonprofit where she worked as compliance director. "How'd the hearing go?" Marissa typed back. "About as expected. I'll fill you in tomorrow." She didn't mention the judge, didn't mention the plan forming in her mind. Her supervisor knew about the commission appointment. It was listed on her employee disclosure forms, but they'd never discussed it in detail. Most people didn't understand what the commission actually did. They heard judicial oversight and imagined something powerful. They didn't realize how narrow the authority was, how high the evidentiary bar, how resistant the system was to change. But Marissa understood. She'd spent 15 months learning exactly how the machine worked, and now she was deciding whether to use that knowledge. Her phone buzzed again. Different number. Unknown caller. She answered. "Miss Lange?" A woman's voice. Professional. Cautious. "Speaking. This is Judge Camilla Reed. I sit on the bench with Judge Trask. I heard you had a difficult experience in his courtroom this afternoon." Marissa's fingers tightened on the phone. She didn't respond immediately. Reed filled the silence. "I want you to know that Judge Trask is a dedicated public servant. He's been on the bench for 18 years. Sometimes his courtroom manner can seem brusque, but that's just his way of maintaining order. I'm sure he didn't intend any disrespect." "I appreciate you calling, Judge Reed." Marissa kept her voice neutral. Reed continued. "I also want to make sure you're aware that filing a formal complaint, if that's something you're considering, can be a very stressful process. It becomes part of the public record. People might interpret it as retaliatory, given that you lost your case. I'd hate to see you put yourself through that unnecessarily." There it was, the warning wrapped in concern. Marissa had heard it before, in different contexts. The underlying message was always the same. Don't make trouble. "I understand the complaint process can be complex." It is. Very complex. And time-consuming. And ultimately, most complaints are dismissed because they're based on dissatisfaction with a ruling rather than actual misconduct. I'm just trying to save you the headache. Marissa looked at the folder on her passenger seat. 3 pages of notes. Timestamps. Direct quotes. Photographic evidence. "Judge Reed, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Have you ever observed Judge Trask's courtroom proceedings?" A pause. "Well, not extensively. We each have our own dockets. But you're calling to vouch for his professionalism based on his 18 years of service." Another pause, longer this time. "I'm calling as a colleague who's concerned that a difficult situation might escalate unnecessarily. I appreciate that concern, but I'm going to make my own decision about how to proceed." Reed's tone cooled by a degree. "Of course. I just wanted to make sure you had all the information." "I do. Thank you for calling, Judge Reed." Marissa ended the call before Reed could respond. She opened her folder again, pulled out a fresh sheet of paper, and added a new entry. March 19th, 3:17 p.m. Received unsolicited call from Judge Camilla Reed. Advised against filing complaint. Characterized potential complaint as retaliatory. Claimed to speak on behalf of Judge Trask's reputation, despite stating she hasn't observed his courtroom conduct directly. She photographed the page. Added it to the cloud folder. Then she started the engine and drove to the public library. The library's law section occupied the back corner of the second floor, 4 rows of shelves, mostly outdated legal encyclopedias and state codes from the previous decade, but it also had 2 computer terminals with free access to the state's online legal database. Marissa signed in under a guest account and pulled up the court record search. She entered Judge Harlan Trask's name. The results loaded slowly. 347 cases in the past 12 months. She filtered by case type. Traffic violations. 112 results. She filtered further. Cases where the defendant appeared pro se, representing themselves without an attorney. 63 results. She opened the first 10, read the docket entries. Most were brief. Defendant pled guilty, fine assessed, case closed. But 3 showed something different. Case 2024-TR-8891, State vs. Rodriguez, M. Defendant appeared pro se, attempted to present evidence, motion denied. Summary judgment entered. Fine, $450 plus costs. Case 2024-TR-7634, State vs. Washington K. Defendant appeared pro se, requested continuance to obtain counsel. Denied. Summary judgment entered. Fine, $450 plus costs. Case 2023-TR-9201, State vs. Okonkwo I. Defendant appeared pro se. Objected to procedural irregularity. Objection overruled. Defendant held in contempt. Bail set at $500. Marissa leaned back in the chair. 3 cases, 3 defendants with non-Anglo names, 3 summary judgments without evidentiary hearings. She clicked on the next set of results and kept reading. An hour later, she had a list of 11 cases, all pro se defendants. 10 had names suggesting minority backgrounds. 8 had been interrupted during their presentations, according to the sparse docket notes. 6 had received the same fine amount, $450 plus costs. She opened a new search, filtered for cases with represented defendants, people who'd hired lawyers, found 8 traffic violation cases from the same time period. All 8 resulted in reduced fines or dismissals. 7 of the defendants had Anglo names. It wasn't proof, not yet. Docket entries didn't capture tone, facial expressions, courtroom atmosphere. But it was a pattern, and patterns were where investigations started. Marissa pulled out a flash drive, copied the case numbers and docket summaries, and logged off the computer. She checked her watch. 5:43 p.m. The clerk's office would be closed, but she had time for one more stop. The courthouse was nearly empty when Marissa returned. A security guard sat at the front desk, half watching a small television mounted on the wall. He glanced up as she approached. "Building's closing in 15 minutes, ma'am." "I just need to check something in the public records room." He waved her through without asking for identification. The records room sat on the first floor, adjacent to the clerk's office. The door was unlocked, public access during business hours, technically until 6 p.m. Marissa stepped inside and found herself in a narrow space lined with filing cabinets and a single computer terminal connected to the court's internal system. She sat down. The terminal didn't require a password, public access as stated. She pulled up the case search again, this time accessing the full file records rather than just docket summaries. For each of the 11 cases she'd flagged, she requested copies of the hearing transcripts. Transcript request submitted. Case 2024-TR-8891, fee $35. Processing time 4 to 6 weeks. She submitted the request, then submitted 10 more, 1 for each case. The system generated a confirmation number and a total fee, $385. Marissa pulled out her credit card and entered the payment information. The receipts printed on a small thermal printer next to the terminal. She folded them into her folder and stood to leave. "Find what you needed?" The voice came from behind her. Marissa turned. Sienna Voss stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Just submitting transcript requests." 11 of them. It wasn't a question. Voss had clearly been watching the system. Marissa didn't ask how she knew. She just nodded. "Public records. I'm entitled to request them." "You're building a case." Voss said it flatly. Marissa met her gaze. "I'm gathering information. About Judge Trask. About court proceedings." Voss stepped fully into the room. The door swung closed behind her. "Ms. Lange, I don't know what you think you're going to accomplish, but I've worked in this courthouse for 12 years. I've seen people file complaints. I've seen them request transcripts and footage and try to build cases against judges. You know how many have succeeded?" Marissa didn't answer. Voss continued. "Zero, because judges are protected. By the system, by their colleagues, by the law. Even if you had video of Judge Trask doing something egregious, which you don't, it would get explained away. He was having a bad day. The defendant was being difficult. Courtroom management requires firm control. That's how it works. Then you have nothing to worry about." Marissa moved toward the door. Voss didn't step aside. "If you keep pushing this, people are going to ask questions. About why you're so invested. About whether you have an agenda. About your background." The threat was subtle, but clear. Marissa stopped 2 feet from Voss. "My background is public record. I work in nonprofit compliance. I'm a registered voter. I pay my taxes. And I have the same right as any citizen to request public documents and file complaints about government officials. Is there something specific you'd like to ask about my background, Ms. Voss?" Voss's jaw tightened. "I'm just saying, you should be careful, that's all." "I appreciate the advice." Marissa waited. After 3 seconds, Voss stepped aside. Marissa walked out of the records room, through the empty hallway, past the security guard, and out into the parking lot. She sat in her car for 5 minutes before starting the engine, reviewing everything Voss had said. The defensive tone, the veiled threats, the assumption that Marissa would be intimidated. It told her 2 things. First, Voss knew exactly who Judge Trask was and what he was capable of. Second, she was invested in protecting him. Marissa added a new page to her notes. March 19th, 5:51 p.m. Clerk S. Voss confronted me in records room. Warned against pushing complaint. Implied background investigation. Suggested complaints against judges never succeed. Conclusion. Voss is active participant in protecting Trask, not neutral administrator. She photographed the page. Then she drove home and began drafting her Freedom of Information Act request for courthouse security camera footage. If you haven't already, smash that like button and subscribe for part 2 of this story. The footage request took 3 weeks to process. During that time, Marissa maintained her normal routine. She went to work at the nonprofit, reviewing compliance reports, attending board meetings, managing grant documentation. She didn't mention the courthouse incident to anyone except her supervisor, and only in passing. The hearing was frustrating, but I'm handling it. At night, she worked on the complaint. Not the formal filing. Not yet. Just preliminary research. She pulled up the Code of Judicial Conduct and read every canon, every comment, every advisory opinion published by the state judiciary. She identified 4 potential violations. Canon 1.2, a judge shall act at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence in the independence, integrity, and impartiality of the judiciary. Canon 2.3, b, a judge shall not, in the performance of judicial duties, by words or conduct, manifest bias or prejudice. Canon 2.8, a, a judge shall be patient, dignified, and courteous to litigants, jurors, witnesses, lawyers, and others. Canon 2.16, a judge shall not, in response to criticism, retaliate against any person, or intimidate, or attempt to intimidate any person. She drafted a preliminary outline of the complaint, using hypothetical language. If a judge were to interrupt a pro se litigant repeatedly, refuse to allow presentation of evidence, render summary judgment without hearing, and then treat the next defendant, of different race and gender, with courtesy and procedural fairness, would that constitute a violation? She didn't name Trask. Not in the draft. She was still documenting. Still deciding. On the 21st day after submitting the FOIA request, a package arrived at her house. Large manila envelope, return address from the county IT department. Inside, a USB drive and a cover letter. RE, request for security camera footage. Case number FOIA-2024-0 0847. Please find attached digital footage from courthouse camera number 3, courtroom 3 entrance, and camera number 7, main hallway east wing, for the date and time range specified in your request. Note: camera number 12, courtroom 3 interior, experienced a technical malfunction on March 19th, and no footage is available for the period 2:30 to 3 p.m. Marissa read the last sentence twice. No interior footage. Technical malfunction. On the exact day and time she needed. She plugged the USB drive into her laptop and opened the files. 2 video folders. cam03_03-2024_1400-1600.mp 4cam07_03-19-2024_1 400-1600.mp4. The first file showed the entrance to courtroom 3. She watched herself enter at 2:38 p.m., folder in hand, watched other people file in and out. At 2:45 p.m., the next defendant, Michael Pemberton, white male, entered. At 2:52 p.m., she exited. At 2:57 p.m., Pemberton exited, smiling. The second file showed the hallway. She watched herself pause at the Code of Judicial Conduct placard, photograph it, continue walking toward the clerk's office. The timestamp was clear: 2:53 p.m. No audio, no interior courtroom coverage. But the entrance footage was enough to confirm the timeline: 7 minutes from her entry to her exit, with Pemberton entering during her hearing and leaving shortly after. Marissa created a new folder on her laptop: Trask Investigation, Video Evidence. She copied both files and added a text document summarizing what the footage showed and what was conspicuously missing. Then she submitted a follow-up FOIA request: maintenance records for courtroom 3, camera number 12, specifically any service reports or malfunction logs for March 2024. The response came back in 4 days. No responsive records found. No malfunction report. No service log. Just a camera that happened to stop working at the exact moment she needed it most. Marissa added that to her notes. The transcript requests took longer. 6 weeks. When they finally arrived, 11 thick envelopes, each containing a certified court reporter's record, Marissa cleared her kitchen table and spread them out in chronological order. She started with the earliest case: State v. Rodriguez M., October 2023. The transcript was sparse. Court reporter's notes captured words but not tone. Still, the pattern was visible. Judge Trask, state your name for the record. Defendant, Maria Rodriguez. Judge Trask, you're here regarding a traffic citation. Do you have an attorney? Defendant, no, Your Honor, I'm representing myself. I'd like to explain. Judge Trask, I don't need explanations. Do you have evidence? Defendant, yes, I have. Judge Trask, submit it. Defendant, Your Honor, if I could just... Judge Trask, ma'am, I don't have time for speeches. Guilty. $450 plus costs. Next case, the entire exchange. 42 seconds, according to the timestamps. Marissa read the next transcript. State v. Washington K. November 2023. Same pattern. Interruptions. Refusal to allow testimony. Summary judgment. Fine. $450 plus costs. By the time she finished reading all 11 transcripts, the pattern was undeniable. Every pro se defendant, every defendant with a non-Anglo name, same treatment, same outcome. She pulled out the transcripts from the represented defendants, the cases where people had hired lawyers. The contrast was stark. Judge Trask, Mr. Kimball, good to see you. What do we have today? Attorney Kimball, Your Honor, my client was cited for an improper lane change, but the officer's report contains several inconsistencies that I'd like to address. Judge Trask, take your time. The hearing lasted 14 minutes. The fine was reduced to $50. Marissa stacked the transcripts in 2 piles, 11 on the left, 8 on the right. She photographed both stacks with her phone, making sure the case numbers were visible on the top pages. Then she opened a new document and began writing the formal complaint. Complaint to the State Judicial Qualifications Commission. Complainant: Marissa Lange, 427 Oakmont Drive, City, State, Zip. Subject: Judge Harlan Trask, Circuit Court. Date of filing: April 30th, 2024. Basis for complaint: Judge Harlan Trask has engaged in a pattern of conduct that violates the Code of Judicial Conduct, specifically Canons 1.2, 2.3b, 2.8a, and 2.16a. This conduct manifests as bias based on race, gender, and represented status, resulting in denial of due process to pro se litigants. Supporting evidence: Permise, personal experience, case num. 2024-TR-9033. Attached: transcript, video footage, incident report. 2. Pattern evidence: 11 cases involving pro se defendants. Attached: transcripts, docket summaries. 3. Comparative evidence: 8 cases involving represented defendants. Attached: transcripts. 4. Statistical analysis: pro se defendants with minority names received summary judgments in 100% of reviewed cases. Represented defendants with Anglo names received reductions or dismissals in 87.5% of cases. Request for investigation: I request that the Commission investigate Judge Trask's conduct and determine whether sanctions are warranted. Disclosure: I am a sitting member of the State Judicial Qualifications Commission. I am filing this complaint in my capacity as a private citizen who experienced judicial misconduct. I will recuse myself from any commission vote or deliberation regarding this matter. Respectfully submitted, Marissa Lange. Marissa read the draft 3 times, checked every citation, verified every attachment. Then she saved it to her desktop and closed the laptop. She didn't file it. Not yet. There was one more thing she needed to do. The next morning, Marissa called each of the 11 defendants whose transcripts she'd reviewed. She'd found their contact information through public records, phone numbers listed on case documents, addresses from clerk filings. She wasn't sure any of them would talk to her, but she had to try. The first 3 calls went to voicemail. She left brief messages. My name is Marissa Lange. I'm researching court proceedings involving Judge Harlan Trask. If you're willing to share your experience, please call me back. The 4th call connected. Hello? A woman's voice, cautious. Is this Maria Rodriguez? Who's asking? My name is Marissa Lange. I had an experience in Judge Trask's courtroom similar to yours, and I'm trying to document a pattern of behavior. I'm not a lawyer or a reporter. I'm just someone who wants to make sure what happened to both of us doesn't keep happening to other people. Silence for 5 seconds. Then, what do you want to know? Marissa spent the next 20 minutes listening. Rodriguez described her hearing in October 2023, how she'd tried to explain that the officer who cited her had misidentified her vehicle, how Judge Trask cut her off mid-sentence, how she felt humiliated in front of the courtroom. She'd considered filing a complaint, but didn't know how. She'd paid the fine and tried to move on. Did you notice anything about how Judge Trask treated other people in the courtroom? Rodriguez paused. Yeah. There was a white guy who went after me. Lawyer in a suit. Judge was all friendly with him, laughing. Gave him some tiny fine. It was like watching 2 different people. Marissa thanked her and asked if she'd be willing to submit a written statement. Rodriguez agreed. The 5th call went to Kenneth Washington. He answered on the 2nd ring and immediately said, I knew someone would call eventually. He told her about his November hearing, how he'd asked for a continuance to hire an attorney, how Trask denied it without explanation, how he felt targeted from the moment he walked into the courtroom. I'm a high school teacher. I've never been in trouble, but the way that judge looked at me, like I was already guilty before I said a word. Marissa asked the same question. Had he noticed disparate treatment? Oh yeah, I sat through 3 other cases while I was waiting. 2 white folks, 1 black woman. The white folks got their fines cut in half. The black woman, Judge Trask barely let her talk. Same as me. 6 more calls. 4 more people willing to share their stories. By the end of the day, Marissa had 7 witness statements, all describing the same pattern. She compiled them into a supplemental exhibit, redacted identifying information to protect privacy, added them to her complaint file. Now, she was ready. Marissa opened the Judicial Qualifications Commission's online portal and logged into her account, not as a commissioner, but as a citizen. The system allowed dual access. Commissioners could view pending cases, but citizens could file complaints through a separate interface. She uploaded the complaint, attached the exhibits, transcripts, video footage, witness statements, statistical analysis. The file size was massive, over 200 megabytes. The system took 4 minutes to process the upload. When it finished, a confirmation screen appeared. Complaint filed successfully. Case number 2024-JQC-447. Status: pending preliminary review. Estimated review. Time: 30 days. Marissa took a screenshot, saved it to her records. Then she logged out and closed the laptop. She sat at her kitchen table for 10 minutes, not moving, just processing what she'd done. Filing a complaint against a sitting judge was serious. Filing one while serving on the Oversight Commission was unprecedented in her tenure. She'd disclosed her role, recused herself from the vote, followed every ethical guideline. But she knew how it would look: a commissioner going after a judge who ruled against her. The optics were bad, the evidence was strong, and the decision was made. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number: Ms. Lange. This is Attorney Wade Kimball. I represent an interested party in a matter you recently filed with the state. We should talk. Marissa stared at the message for 30 seconds. Then she typed back. All communications regarding commission matters should be directed through official channels. Please contact the commission administrator. She blocked the number. 2 hours later, her phone rang. Judge Camilla Reed. Marissa didn't answer. Reed left a voicemail. Marissa, I heard you filed a formal complaint. I really wish you'd reconsidered. This is going to create problems for you, for the commission, for the court system. Please call me. We can still fix this before it becomes public. Marissa deleted the message without listening to it a second time. She knew what was coming next. The system would close ranks. Judges would defend judges. Lawyers would file procedural motions. Clerk Voss would suddenly lose records or claim malfunction. The machinery of institutional self-protection would grind into motion. But Marissa had spent 15 months learning how that machinery worked. She knew its weak points. She knew that once a complaint was filed with the commission, it couldn't be dismissed without review. She knew that the commission had subpoena power. She knew that if the evidence was strong enough, even institutional pressure couldn't make it disappear. She also knew one thing the system didn't. She wasn't an outsider filing a complaint. She was an insider who understood exactly how to navigate the process. And she hadn't told anyone yet. 3 days after filing the complaint, Marissa received a call from the commission administrator, not her colleague, but the professional staff member who managed case intake. Ms. Lange, your complaint has been assigned for preliminary review. You'll receive a determination within 30 days regarding whether the commission will proceed with a formal investigation. Thank you. I should also inform you that the subject of the complaint has been notified and has the right to submit a written response. I understand. And Ms. Lange, I want to confirm that you're aware this will be a public process if it moves forward. Your name will be on the record. Your role as a commissioner will be disclosed. Are you comfortable with that? Marissa didn't hesitate. Yes. The administrator paused. Okay, we'll be in touch. The call ended. Marissa sat in her office at the nonprofit, staring at her computer screen. She had a compliance report due by end of day, a grant proposal to review, 3 emails from her supervisor about an upcoming board meeting. She answered the emails, finished the report, reviewed the proposal. Then she went home and waited. The response from Judge Trask arrived 2 weeks later. The commission forwarded it to Marissa as the complainant. It was 14 pages long, single-spaced, written by Attorney Wade Kimball. Marissa read it in her car during lunch break, parked in the nonprofit's lot. The response argued 5 main points. 1. The complaint was procedurally defective because Marissa had failed to exhaust her appellate remedies before filing with the Commission. 2. Marissa's account of the hearing was subjective and self-serving, contradicted by the objective record of the transcript. 3. The comparison to other cases was cherry-picked and failed to account for legitimate case-by-case differences in defendant conduct and evidentiary strength. 4. Marissa's position as a commissioner created an inherent conflict of interest that tainted the complaint. 5. The complaint was transparently retaliatory, filed solely because Marissa was dissatisfied with the outcome of her case. The final paragraph was unsubtle. Judge Trask has served the people of this state with distinction for 18 years. He has presided over thousands of cases with fairness and impartiality. This complaint is an abuse of the commission process and should be dismissed immediately. Marissa set down the document, pulled out her phone, opened the voice memo app, and recorded her thoughts. May 15, 12:34 p.m. Received Judge Trask's response via Attorney Kimball. Response argues procedural defects and retaliation. Does not address substantive evidence. Transcripts showing pattern. Statistical analysis. Witness statements. Notable omission. No explanation for disparate treatment of pro-SE versus represented defendants. No explanation for missing courtroom footage. Strategy appears to be attack complainant's motives rather than defend conduct. She saved the memo. Then she drafted her reply to the Commission, point by point. RE, response to preliminary objections in Case 2024-JQC-4471. Procedural exhaustion. Commission rules do not require exhaustion of appellate remedies before filing a conduct complaint. Judicial misconduct and case outcome are separate issues. See Commission Rule 4.2. A. 2. Transcript record. Respondent claims transcript is objective. Attached video footage shows timing and sequence consistent with complainant's account. Court reporter certified transcript confirms interruptions occurred. 3. Case selection. Complainant reviewed all pro-SE traffic cases in 6-month period, 63 total, identified pattern in 11, and compared to all represented cases in same period, 8 total. This is not cherry-picking. It is comprehensive analysis. 4. Conflict of interest. Complainant disclosed commissioner role in original filing and recused herself from commission vote. No conflict exists when citizen exercises same rights as any other citizen. 5. Retaliation claim. Complaint filed 6 weeks after hearing, following extensive research and documentation. Complainant's evidence includes cases predating her own by 6 months. Pattern existed before complainant's involvement. Marissa attached her reply to an email and sent it to the commission administrator. Then she went back to work. That night, she received an email from Maria Rodriguez, one of the witnesses who'd agreed to provide a statement. Ms. Lange, I got a call today from a lawyer saying he represents Judge Trask and asking me questions about my case. He wanted to know if you contacted me and what I told you. I didn't tell him anything, but I wanted you to know. Marissa forwarded the email to the commission administrator with a subject line. Potential witness intimidation. Case 2024-JQC-447. The administrator replied within an hour. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We will address this with respondent's counsel. 2 days later, Attorney Kimball filed a motion to dismiss the complaint. The commission denied it. The preliminary review moved forward. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Part 2 is coming soon. On June 7th, exactly 30 days after filing her complaint, Marissa received an email from the Commission. Preliminary Review Decision. Case 2024-JQC-447. The Commission has completed its preliminary review and finds probable cause to believe that violations of the Code of Judicial Conduct may have occurred. The matter is hereby referred for formal investigation. Estimated timeline, 120 days. Marissa read the email 3 times. Then she closed her laptop and sat in silence. Probable cause. Formal investigation. It was happening. She knew what the next 4 months would bring. Depositions, subpoenas, media attention, institutional resistance. Judge Trask would fight. His colleagues would rally. The system would push back. But the investigation had begun, and once it started, it couldn't be stopped without cause. Marissa pulled out her folder, now 5 inches thick with transcripts, video files, witness statements, legal research, and added one final document, a copy of the commission's decision. Then she went to the courthouse. The building was quiet on a Friday afternoon. Most hearings ended by 4 p.m. Marissa walked through the front entrance, past the security guard who nodded absently, and up the stairs to the second floor. She didn't go to the clerk's office. She didn't go to courtroom 3. She went to the small conference room at the end of the east hallway, marked reserved. Judicial Qualifications Commission, June 7th, 4:30 p.m. 4 other commissioners were already seated around the table. They looked up as she entered. One of them, an older black man, retired appellate judge, smiled slightly. "Commissioner Lange, good to see you." "Good to see you too, Judge Weston." She sat at the far end of the table, across from the commission chair, a white woman in her 60s named Patricia Hale. Hale waited until everyone was settled before speaking. "We're here for preliminary discussion of Case 2024-JQC-447. Commissioner Lange, you've recused yourself from voting on this matter due to your personal involvement as the complainant. However, you're welcome to observe the discussion if you'd like. I'd prefer to step out during deliberations." Hale nodded. "That's fine. Before you go, I want to acknowledge something. What you did, filing this complaint knowing the scrutiny it would bring, took courage. Some people might question your motives, but I've reviewed the evidence. It's comprehensive, and it raises serious concerns." Judge Weston spoke up. "I've been on this commission for 6 years. I've never seen a case file this thorough. Transcripts, video, statistical analysis, witness statements. This isn't someone with an axe to grind. This is someone who did the work." Another commissioner, a white man, private attorney, cleared his throat. "I'll play devil's advocate. Judge Trask's attorney is going to argue that Marissa's position on this commission gave her access to resources and knowledge that ordinary citizens don't have. That she used that advantage to build a case specifically because she lost hers." Marissa spoke before Hale could respond. "I used publicly available resources. Court transcripts, public records requests, witness interviews. Anyone could have done the same research. The only difference is that I knew the research was worth doing." The attorney nodded slowly. "Fair point." Hale turned to Marissa. "Anything else you want to add before you step out?" "Just one thing. I know this investigation is going to be difficult. Judge Trask has allies. The system will push back, but the evidence speaks for itself. 11 defendants, 7 willing to testify. Pattern behavior spanning 6 months before I ever set foot in that courtroom. Whatever happens to my case, whether I win or lose on appeal, doesn't change what's documented here." She stood, picked up her folder, walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned back. "And for the record, I didn't file this complaint because I'm a commissioner. I filed it because I'm a black woman who's watched this happen too many times. The commission role just means I knew where to send it." She left the room and sat in the hallway for the next 90 minutes while the commission deliberated. When the door finally opened, Judge Weston stepped out first. He saw Marissa and paused. "We're moving forward with the full investigation. Subpoenas will go out next week. Expect depositions to start in July." Marissa nodded. "Thank you." Weston hesitated, then added quietly, "You know they're going to come after you, right? Trask's people. They'll dig into your background, your job, your finances. They'll look for anything to discredit you." "I know." "And you're okay with that?" Marissa met his eyes. "I've been okay with it since the day I filed." The first subpoena went to the courthouse IT department. Maintenance records, security camera logs, and all footage from March 19th. The second went to Clerk Sienna Voss. emails, memos, and communications related to complaint procedures. The third went to Judge Trask himself, calendar records, case files, and courtroom audio recordings for the past year. Marissa wasn't involved in issuing the subpoenas. She was recused, but the commission administrator kept her informed as a courtesy. Each subpoena triggered a response. The courthouse claimed some records were lost or archived off-site. Voss's attorney argued that her emails were protected by attorney-client privilege. Trask filed a motion to quash his subpoena entirely, claiming judicial immunity. The commission denied all three motions. The records were produced, slowly, incompletely. But they arrived. By mid-July, the commission's investigator, a former FBI agent named Carolyn Drake, had compiled a file twice the size of Marissa's original submission. She'd interviewed 14 witnesses, reviewed 37 case files, and obtained previously lost security footage from a backup server that IT forgot existed. The footage showed the interior of Courtroom 3 on March 19th, all of it, including the 7 minutes of Marissa's hearing. Drake called Marissa on July 23rd. "I need you to watch something." She sent a video file. Marissa opened it on her laptop. The timestamp read, March 19th, 2024, 2:41:18 p.m. The camera angle showed the full courtroom. Marissa watched herself approach the podium, watched Judge Trask lean forward with that half smile, half sneer, watched the interruptions, the dismissiveness, the contempt threat. Then she watched the next case, Michael Pemberton, white, male, similar violation. Trask's entire demeanor changed. Friendly, patient, joking. The fine reduced to $50. Drake's voice came through the phone. "You see it?" "Yeah." "So did I. And so will everyone else when this goes to hearing." Marissa closed the video. "How'd you get this?" "IT said the camera malfunctioned." "It did, for about 10 minutes. But the system has a backup protocol that caches footage on a secondary server before deletion. IT didn't know about it, or claimed they didn't. Will it be admissible? Already authenticated by the vendor who installed the system. Chain of custody is clean. This is coming in." Marissa took a breath. "What happens next?" "Depositions. We start with you next week, then Trask, then everyone else. After that, we compile findings and schedule a public hearing. Best guess. Hearing happens in October. Decision by November. 4 more months." 4 more months. The call ended. Marissa sat at her kitchen table, staring at the frozen image on her laptop screen. Judge Harlan Trask, leaning back in his chair, laughing at something Attorney Kimball had said. She saved the video to her case file. Then she opened her calendar and marked October 15th, probable hearing date. Case 2024, JQC 447. 4 more months of waiting. 4 more months of institutional pushback. 4 more months of doubt and pressure and scrutiny. But she'd done the work. The evidence was there. And for the first time since this started, Marissa allowed herself to believe that the system, slow, flawed, resistant, might actually work. Actually, she just had to get through the depositions first. The deposition took place in a windowless conference room on the 3rd floor of the courthouse annex. Marissa arrived 15 minutes early, carrying her folder and a leather portfolio she'd used during every commission meeting for the past 15 months. The court reporter was already setting up her equipment, a different woman than the one from Trask's courtroom, younger, with precise movements. Attorney Wade Kimball entered at exactly 9 a.m. He wore a charcoal suit, red tie, expression set in professional neutrality. Behind him came Judge Harlan Trask in civilian clothes, khakis, and a button-down shirt, looking smaller without the black robe. Kimball set his briefcase on the table and pulled out a stack of papers. "Ms. Lange, I'm Wade Kimball, representing Judge Trask in this matter. You understand you're here to provide testimony under oath regarding your complaint?" "I do." "And you understand that making false statements during this deposition could result in perjury charges?" Marissa met his eyes without blinking. "I understand." The court reporter swore her in. Kimball opened his notepad and began. State your full name and occupation for the record. Marissa Lange. I'm a compliance director at the Greater Metro Nonprofit Alliance. And you're also a member of the State Judicial Qualifications Commission, correct? Yes. How long have you held that position? 18 months. I was appointed in January 2023. Kimball made a note. When you filed your complaint against Judge Trask, did you disclose your role as a commissioner? Yes. It's stated in the first paragraph of my complaint. But you didn't mention it during your hearing in his courtroom, did you? No. Why not? Marissa kept her voice level. Because I appeared in his courtroom as a private citizen contesting a traffic citation. My role as a commissioner wasn't relevant to that proceeding. Wasn't relevant? Or you deliberately concealed it to create grounds for a complaint? Investigator Carolyn Drake, sitting in the corner observing, cleared her throat. Counsel, that's argumentative. Kimball didn't look at her. I'll rephrase. Ms. Lange, did you decide to file a complaint against Judge Trask before or after your hearing? After. I observed his conduct during my hearing, then researched whether it was part of a pattern. The research confirmed it was. How convenient. Drake's voice sharpened. Counsel, please confine yourself to questions. Kimball turned a page in his notes. Ms. Lange, you submitted transcript requests for 11 other cases. How did you select those cases? I reviewed all pro se traffic violation cases in Judge Trask's courtroom over a 6-month period. I requested transcripts for cases where the docket entries indicated summary judgment without evidentiary hearing. And how many cases did you review in total? 63. You reviewed 63 cases to find 11 that supported your theory. Doesn't that suggest cherry-picking? No. It suggests that 17% of pro-SE defendants experienced the same treatment I did. That's a statistically significant pattern. Kimball leaned back. You're not a statistician, are you, Ms. Lange? No, but I work in compliance. I analyze data patterns regularly. It's part of my job. Your nonprofit job? Yes. The job you've held for 8 years, making approximately $60,000 annually, correct? Marissa's eyes narrowed slightly. What does my salary have to do with judicial misconduct? I'm establishing your background. You're not a lawyer. You're not a judge. You're a nonprofit administrator with no legal training. Yet you've taken it upon yourself to investigate a sitting judge who's been on the bench for 18 years. Drake interrupted. Counsel, Ms. Lange's qualifications aren't at issue. The evidence is. Kimball ignored her. Ms. Lange, have you ever filed a complaint against a judge before? No. Have you ever been involved in any legal proceedings other than this traffic citation? No. So this is your first experience with the court system, and immediately after losing your case, you launch a comprehensive investigation into the judge. Does that seem reasonable to you? Marissa's voice stayed calm. What seems reasonable is documenting a pattern of bias that affects multiple people. Whether I won or lost my case is irrelevant to whether Judge Trask violated ethical standards. Kimball flipped through more papers. Let's talk about these witnesses you interviewed. Did you compensate them in any way? No. Did you coach them on what to say? I asked them to describe their experiences. I didn't suggest what those experiences should be. But you selected witnesses who would support your narrative. I contacted every defendant whose transcript showed similar treatment. 7 agreed to speak with me. 4 declined. I included all 7 who agreed. Kimball pulled out a document. This is the statement from Maria Rodriguez. She claims Judge Trask was disrespectful and dismissive. Those are her exact words. Did you help her write this? No. I asked her to describe her hearing in her own words. She sent me that statement via email. Convenient that her description matches yours almost perfectly. Marissa leaned forward slightly. Or it indicates that Judge Trask treats multiple people the same way. Judge Trask, who'd been silent until now, shifted in his chair. He whispered something to Kimball. The attorney nodded and turned back to Marissa. Ms. Lange, do you have any personal animosity toward Judge Trask? No. You're not angry that he ruled against you. I'm disappointed that he didn't allow me to present evidence. But my complaint isn't about anger, it's about accountability. Accountability. Kimball said the word slowly, as if testing its weight. You're a commissioner on the oversight body that investigates judges. You appear in a judge's courtroom, lose your case, then use your position to launch an investigation. And you call that accountability? Drake stood up. Counsel, this has crossed the line from questioning into harassment. Ms. Lange disclosed her position. She recused herself from voting. She followed every ethical guideline. Unless you have substantive questions about the evidence, we're done here. Kimball gathered his papers. I have no further questions at this time, but we reserve the right to recall Ms. Lange if additional issues arise. He stood. Trask stood with him. As they walked toward the door, Trask paused and looked directly at Marissa for the first time. You've made a mistake. His voice was quiet, not threatening, just matter-of-fact. Marissa held his gaze. We'll see. The door closed behind them. Drake sat down across from Marissa. You did well. He was trying to rattle you. I noticed. Trask's deposition is scheduled for next week. Based on what I've gathered so far, he's going to claim he doesn't remember specific interactions, standard defense. Can't violate rules if you don't remember violating them. Will that work? Not when we have video. Not when we have 11 transcripts showing the same pattern. Memory doesn't matter when the evidence is documented. Drake stood and packed her recorder. One more thing. Be careful for the next few weeks. Trask's people are going to look for anything to discredit you. Watch what you say. Watch who you talk to. And if anyone approaches you about this case outside official channels, document it immediately. Understood. Marissa left the annex and walked to her car. The parking lot was mostly empty at mid-morning. She was halfway across the asphalt when she heard footsteps behind her. Fast, deliberate. She turned. Bailiff Kurt Rayburn stood 10 feet away, still in uniform despite being off courthouse grounds. His hand rested on his belt near his radio. Ms. Lange, didn't expect to see you here. Marissa's pulse quickened, but her voice stayed steady. I had business in the building. Yeah, I heard. Deposition. You're really going through with this. I'm participating in a formal investigation, as required. Rayburn took 3 steps closer, close enough that Marissa could smell the coffee on his breath. You know what happens to people who make trouble for judges? They get watched, real close. Every parking ticket, every jaywalking violation, every little mistake. Marissa pulled out her phone and opened the voice memo app, held it up so the microphone was visible. Are you threatening me, Officer Rayburn? His jaw tightened. I'm giving you friendly advice. As someone who's worked in this courthouse for 12 years, we take care of our own. And Judge Trask? He's one of ours. This conversation is being recorded. If you have nothing further to add, I'm leaving. She turned toward her car. Rayburn's hand shot out and grabbed her shoulder, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her movement. I'm not done talking. Marissa spun back, stepped out of his grip, and raised her phone higher. You just committed battery. On camera, with audio. I'm documenting the timestamp, July 29th, 10:47 a.m., and I will be filing a report with your supervisor and including this incident in my supplemental filing with the commission. Rayburn's face flushed red. You think you're smart. You think you're protected because you're on some committee, but you're not a judge, you're not a lawyer, you're nobody. And yet I'm the one with evidence. Step away from me. Now. For 3 seconds, neither of them moved. Then Rayburn stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. Whatever. Enjoy your investigation. See how far it gets you. He walked away. Marissa waited until he was out of sight before getting in her car. Her hands shook slightly as she saved the recording and immediately forwarded it to Carolyn Drake with a subject line. Witness Intimidation. Officer K. Rayburn, July 29th, 10:47 a.m. Drake's response came through before Marissa left the parking lot. Received. This will be included in the investigation file. Are you safe? Marissa typed back, "Yes, but they're escalating." She drove to work and tried to focus on grant proposals, but her mind kept circling back to Rayburn's words. "You're nobody." That was the point they didn't understand. She didn't need to be somebody. The evidence spoke for itself. Judge Trask's deposition happened on August 5th. Marissa wasn't allowed to attend, conflict of interest, but Drake sent her a summary that evening. Trask claims no memory of your specific hearing. Claims he treats all defendants equally. When shown video footage, he argues that courtroom management requires different approaches for different situations. When pressed on why those situations correlate with race and gender, he insists it's coincidence. He's sticking to his story. But the video doesn't lie. Marissa read the summary twice, then filed it with her growing case documentation. The investigation was moving forward, slowly, but forward. 2 weeks later, she received a call from Maria Rodriguez. "Miss Lange, something happened." Rodriguez's voice was tight with anxiety. "What is it?" "I got pulled over this morning. Cop said I didn't come to a complete stop at a sign. But I did. I always do. And when he ran my license, he made a comment about how I have a history of traffic violations. But I don't. I paid that one fine from Judge Trask's court, and that's it." "Did the officer give you a ticket?" "Yeah, $380, and he said something weird. He said, 'Maybe next time you'll think twice before making accusations.'" Marissa's stomach dropped. "What was the officer's name?" "Dane Hutchins." The same officer who'd cited Marissa. The same officer whose body cam footage had gone missing. Marissa closed her eyes and took a breath. "Ms. Rodriguez, I need you to do something. Request the body cam footage from this traffic stop. Submit a FOIA request today. And document everything. The officer's exact words, the time, the location. This is retaliation, and it's going in the investigation file. You think they're targeting me because I talked to you? I think they're trying to intimidate witnesses, but it's not going to work. Just document everything and send it to me." Rodriguez agreed. The call ended. Marissa immediately forwarded the information to Drake. An hour later, her phone rang again. Kenneth Washington. "Ms. Lange, I got a letter from the city. They're claiming I owe back taxes on my property, but I paid my taxes. I have the receipts. This is harassment, right? Send me copies of everything. The letter, your payment receipts, all of it." "They're really doing this? Going after everyone who spoke up?" "It looks that way. But every time they do, they create more evidence of retaliation. Send me those documents." 3 more calls came over the next week. 3 more witnesses reporting sudden problems, parking tickets, code violations, surprise audits from city departments. Every single one happened after their names appeared on the witness list. Marissa compiled all of it into a 40-page supplemental filing titled Evidence of Systemic Retaliation Against Witnesses. Case 2024, JQC 447. She submitted it to the commission on August 23rd. Drake called her the next day. "This is bigger than we thought." "I know. This isn't just Trask. This is institutional. Clerk Voss, Officer Hutchins, Bailiff Rayburn, they're all coordinating, protecting the system." "Can you prove it?" "I'm working on it. I subpoenaed email records from the courthouse server. IT is fighting it, but we'll get them eventually. If there's communication between these people about targeting witnesses, it'll be in those emails." "How long?" 2 more weeks, maybe 3. Then we'll have everything we need for the hearing." Marissa thanked her and hung up. She sat in her office at the nonprofit, surrounded by grant files and budget reports, and allowed herself a moment of doubt. Was this worth it? The harassment, the intimidation, the scrutiny? She'd filed a complaint about one judge's conduct, and now she was uncovering a network of retaliation that reached across multiple departments. Then she thought about Maria Rodriguez, Kenneth Washington, the 7 witnesses who'd spoken up despite knowing it might cost them. The 11 defendants who'd been dismissed and humiliated and silenced. Yes, it was worth it. The email dump arrived on September 10th. Drake called Marissa at 7 a.m. "You need to see this." She sent a secure link to a cloud folder containing 847 emails pulled from the courthouse server. Marissa opened her laptop and started reading. From Voss, Sienna. To Trask, Harlan, Chambers. Date, March 20th, 2024. Subject, persistent complainant. Harlan, the woman from yesterday's hearing came back asking for complaint forms. I told her we don't stock them. She's filing online. Thought you should know. From Trask, Harlan. To Voss, Sienna. Date, March 20th, 2024. R.E., persistent complainant. Thanks for the heads up. Standard delay protocol. Let me know if she comes back. Marissa kept reading. Email after email showing coordination. Voss alerting Trask about records requests. Trask contacting Bailiff Rayburn about keeping an eye on the situation. Rayburn forwarding information to Officer Hutchins. Then she found the message that made her blood run cold. From Reed Camilla. To Trask, Harlan. Date, April 2nd, 2024. Subject, the complainant Harlan. I did some digging on Marissa Lange. She's not just a random citizen. She's a sitting commissioner on the Judicial Qualifications Commission. Governor appointed her in 2023. This is worse than we thought. She knows exactly what she's doing. From Trask, Harlan. To Reed Camilla. Date, April 2nd, 2024. R.E., the complainant. How the hell did we not know this? Can she even file a complaint while serving on the commission? This has to be a conflict of interest. From Reed Camilla. To Trask, Harlan. Date, April 2nd, 2024. R.E., the complainant I checked with our ethics counsel. She can file as a private citizen as long as she recuses from the vote, which apparently she did. We need a different strategy. I'm calling Wade Kimball. Marissa read the exchange 3 times. They'd known about her role for 5 months. They'd been coordinating their defense specifically because they understood she wasn't a typical complainant, and they'd done it anyway. The intimidation, the retaliation, the witness harassment. She kept reading. Found another email dated August 12th, after the witness list was published. From Hutchins, Dane. To Rayburn, Kurt. Date, August 12th, 2024. Subject, witness follow-up. Kurt, got the list you sent. I'll handle Rodriguez and Washington. You take the others. Nothing major. Just enough to remind them this has consequences. From Rayburn, Kurt. To Hutchins, Dane. Date, August 12th, 2024. R.E., witness follow-up. Copy that. Trask appreciates the support. Marissa's hands clenched on the laptop edge. Written proof. Conspiracy to intimidate witnesses. She immediately forwarded the entire folder to Drake with a message. This is it. This is everything we need. Drake's response came back in minutes. Agreed. I'm escalating this to the full commission immediately. Emergency meeting scheduled for September 16th. This just became a criminal referral. Criminal referral. The words hung in Marissa's mind. This wasn't just judicial misconduct anymore. This was witness tampering, conspiracy, potentially federal civil rights violations under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. Marissa closed her laptop and sat in silence. Then she called each of the 7 witnesses and told them what had been found. Their fear turned to anger. Their anger turned to resolve. We're still testifying, Rodriguez said. Every single one of us. They tried to scare us. It didn't work. On September 16th, the full Judicial Qualifications Commission met in emergency session. Marissa attended as an observer but didn't participate in deliberations. She sat in the hallway outside the conference room while the 5 voting commissioners reviewed the evidence. After 2 hours, the door opened. Commission Chair Patricia Hale stepped out. Marissa, we need to talk to you. Marissa entered the room. The commissioners sat around the table, faces serious. Judge Weston spoke first. We've reviewed the emails. We've reviewed the witness intimidation reports, and we've made a decision. This case is being referred to the State Attorney General for criminal investigation. Simultaneously, we're moving forward with the disciplinary hearing against Judge Trask. The hearing is scheduled for October 15th. Hale added, "We're also issuing emergency protective orders for all 7 witnesses. Any further contact from courthouse personnel will be treated as obstruction of a commission investigation." Marissa nodded slowly. "What does this mean for the timeline?" "It means we're accelerating. The criminal investigation will take months, maybe years, but the disciplinary process moves forward now. You'll testify, the witnesses will testify, and we'll make our determination based on the evidence." Judge Weston leaned forward. "Marissa, you need to understand something. Once this hearing happens, it's public. Your name will be in every news outlet in the state. Your role as both complainant and commissioner will be scrutinized. People will have opinions. Some won't be kind." "I understand." "And you're prepared for that?" Marissa thought about the past 6 months, the depositions, the intimidation, the parking lot confrontation, the witness harassment, the emails showing a system that protected itself at the expense of justice. "I'm prepared." Hale stood. "Then we'll see you at the hearing. October 15th, 9 a.m., State Office Building, Hearing Room C. This will be broadcast publicly. Bring everything you have." Marissa left the building and walked to the coffee shop across the street. She needed to think, needed to process what was about to happen. She ordered black coffee and sat at a table near the window. 10 minutes later, Judge Camilla Reed walked in. "Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. The confrontation is just getting started." Reed didn't notice Marissa at first. She ordered a latte, checked her phone, turned toward the door, and froze. Their eyes met. For 3 seconds, neither moved. Then Reed walked over. "Ms. Lange." Her voice was stiff, formal. Marissa gestured to the empty chair. "Judge Reed, would you like to sit?" Reed hesitated, then sat. She set her coffee down carefully. "I assume you know about the emails." "I do. I want you to understand. I wasn't trying to obstruct anything. I was trying to protect a colleague." "By coordinating a defense strategy before the investigation even started?" Reed's face tightened. "Harlan Trask is a good judge. He's served this community for 18 years. One complaint shouldn't destroy that." "It's not one complaint. It's a pattern documented across 11 cases and 7 witnesses. You cherry-picked those cases." "I reviewed every case. I documented a pattern. That's not cherry-picking. That's evidence." Reed leaned back. "You know what I think? I think you're on a crusade. You lost your case, and instead of accepting it, you used your position on the commission to launch a vendetta." Marissa kept her voice level. "Judge Reed, I disclosed my position from the start. I recused myself from voting. I followed every ethical guideline. What did you do? You called me before I even filed, trying to talk me out of it. You coordinated with Judge Trask to develop a defense. You characterized my complaint as retaliation without reviewing any evidence. And now you're sitting here acting like I'm the problem. You are the problem. You're weaponizing the commission process." "No, I'm using it exactly as it was designed, to hold judges accountable when they violate ethical standards." A man at the next table looked over. Reed lowered her voice. "This hearing is going to be a circus. The media will be there. Your face will be on television. People will ask why a sitting commissioner felt the need to file a complaint in the first place. They'll question your motives, your judgment, your fitness for the role. Let them. You're willing to destroy your reputation for this? I'm willing to stand up for what's right. If that destroys my reputation, so be it." Reed stood abruptly. "You're making a mistake, Ms. Lange, and when this is over, you'll realize it." She walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. "One more thing. Harlan has support. Judicial associations, legal defense funds, colleagues across the state. You think you have evidence? He has resources. This fight isn't over." Before Marissa could respond, a voice came from behind her. Commissioner Lange, if you have a moment. Both women turned. A man in his 50s stood near the counter. White, graying hair, suit without a tie. Marissa recognized him. Commissioner David Brennan, one of her colleagues on the Qualifications Commission. Judge Reed's face went pale. Commissioner. Brennan looked at her with polite confusion. Judge Reed, I didn't realize you knew Commissioner Lange. Reed's mouth opened, closed. Her eyes flicked between Brennan and Marissa, realization dawning. Commissioner Lange? Her voice was barely a whisper. Brennan continued, oblivious to the tension. Marissa, I wanted to touch base about the hearing schedule. Do you have a few minutes? Marissa stood. Of course. Judge Reed was just leaving. Reed didn't move. She stared at Marissa, shock and understanding flooding her expression. Then she grabbed her coffee and walked out without another word. Brennan watched her go, puzzled. Did I interrupt something? No, just a conversation that needed to end. He sat down where Reed had been. I wanted to make sure you're prepared for October 15th. The media is already requesting access. This is going to be high profile. I'm ready. Good, because Trask's team is already spinning this. They're claiming you abused your position, that you targeted him for personal reasons. We need to make sure the evidence speaks louder than their narrative. It will. Brennan nodded and left. Marissa sat alone, coffee cooling in front of her. She pulled out her phone and opened the voice memo app. September 16th, 11:23 a.m. Judge Camilla Reed approached me at coffee shop. Confrontational, accused me of weaponizing commission process. When Commissioner Brennan addressed me as Commissioner Lange, Reed's reaction confirmed she fully understood my role but chose to characterize it as abuse rather than legitimate oversight. Her shock at public acknowledgement suggests she expected my position to remain obscure. She saved the recording, looked out the window. Judge Reed was standing on the sidewalk across the street, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing sharply. Probably calling Trask. Probably warning him that Marissa's role was now impossible to hide. Good. Marissa was done hiding. The weeks leading up to the hearing passed in a blur of preparation. Drake compiled the evidence into a presentation. Video clips synchronized with transcript quotes, statistical analysis showing disparate treatment, email chains proving coordination. The witness statements were organized chronologically. The legal analysis cited specific canon violations with supporting case law. Marissa reviewed everything twice, took notes, prepared for cross-examination. She knew Kimball would come at her hard, question her motives, her methods, her credibility. But she also knew the evidence was solid. On October 14th, the night before the hearing, Marissa sat in her home office and reviewed her testimony one final time. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Ms. Lange, this is Attorney Wade Kimball. I'm calling with a settlement offer. Marissa put the call on speaker and opened her recording app. I'm listening. Judge Trask is willing to accept a private reprimand and agree to complete bias training. In exchange, you withdraw your complaint, and all public proceedings are canceled. This resolves the matter quietly. No media, no spectacle, no damage to anyone's reputation. What about the witness intimidation? The coordination to harass people who spoke up? Those allegations are disputed, but in the interest of resolution, Judge Trask's colleagues who may have acted inappropriately will also receive counseling. Counseling, Marissa said it flatly. Yes, and the Attorney General's office has indicated they're unlikely to pursue criminal charges absent cooperation from your witnesses. If you withdraw the complaint, there's no case. So, if I go away quietly, everyone gets a slap on the wrist, and business continues as usual. Kimball's voice cooled. Ms. Lange, you're looking at months of public scrutiny. Your personal life will be dissected, your job performance questioned, your motivations challenged, all for an outcome that, at best, results in a public reprimand and short suspension. Is that really worth it? Yes. Silence on the line for 5 seconds. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm making it exactly as hard as it should be. Judge Trask violated his ethical obligations. He treated people differently based on race and gender. He coordinated with his colleagues to intimidate witnesses. And you want me to make that go away with a handshake and a training seminar? No. The offer expires tonight. Then it's already expired. I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Kimball. She ended the call, saved the recording, forwarded it to Drake with a note. Settlement offer rejected. They're scared. Drake's response came immediately. Good. They should be. Marissa turned off her phone and went to bed. Tomorrow would be the hardest day of her life, but she was ready. October 15th arrived cold and clear. Marissa dressed in a navy suit, white blouse, minimal jewelry. Professional. Serious. She arrived at the state office building at 8:15 a.m., 45 minutes early. The hearing room was already filling with people. 3 television cameras set up in the back. Reporters in the front rows with notebooks and recorders. Court staff arranging tables and microphones. And sitting in the third row, all 7 witnesses, Maria Rodriguez, Kenneth Washington, and 5 others who'd agreed to testify despite the intimidation. Marissa caught Rodriguez's eye. The woman gave a small nod. We're here. We're ready. At 8:45, Judge Trask entered with his legal team. He wore a dark suit, American flag pin on his lapel, expression set in dignified neutrality. Behind him came Clerk Sienna Voss, Bailiff Rayburn, and Judge Camilla Reed, all listed as witnesses for the defense. The commissioners filed in at 8:55. Chair Patricia Hale took the center seat. Judge Weston sat to her right. The other 3 commissioners filled out the panel. Marissa sat at the complainant's table on the left. Trask sat at the respondent's table on the right, 20 feet away. Hale called the hearing to order at exactly 9 a.m. This is a public disciplinary hearing in the matter of Judicial Qualifications Commission, case number 2024-JQC-447. The complainant is Marissa Lange. The respondent is Judge Harlan Trask. We are here to determine whether Judge Trask violated the Code of Judicial Conduct as alleged in the complaint filed on April 30th, 2024. She turned to Marissa. Ms. Lange, you'll present your case first. You have 2 hours. Please proceed. Marissa stood, walked to the podium, looked at the 5 commissioners. Thank you, Chair Hale. On March 19th, 2024, I appeared in Judge Harlan Trask's courtroom to contest a traffic citation. What happened in those 7 minutes is the foundation of this complaint. But what I discovered in the months that followed is the reason we're here today. She clicked a remote. The screen behind her lit up with a single image. The Code of Judicial Conduct placard from the courthouse wall. Canon 2.3 states that a judge shall perform duties without bias or prejudice. Canon 2.8 requires patience, dignity, and courtesy. Canon 2.16 prohibits retaliation. Judge Trask violated all 3, and I can prove it. For the next 90 minutes, Marissa presented the evidence. She played the courtroom video, her 7-minute hearing where Trask interrupted her 6 times, refused her evidence, and threatened contempt. Then she played the video of Michael Pemberton's hearing immediately after. 14 minutes of courtesy and consideration ending with a reduced fine. She read excerpts from 11 transcripts, each showing the same pattern. Pro se defendants with minority names dismissed and fined, represented defendants with Anglo names treated with respect. She displayed the statistical analysis, 23% higher fines for women of color versus white men in comparable cases. Then came the emails. On March 20th, 2024, one day after my hearing, Clerk Sienna Voss sent this email to Judge Trask. Marissa read it aloud, her voice steady. Harlan, the woman from yesterday's hearing came back asking for complaint forms. I told her we don't stock them. She's filing online. Thought you should know. She paused, let it sink in. Judge Trask responded. Thanks for the heads up. Standard delay protocol. She clicked to the next email. On August 12, 2024, after the witness list was published, Officer Dane Hutchins sent this message to Bailiff Rayburn. She read the full exchange about targeting witnesses, The courtroom was silent except for her voice and the clicking of reporters' keyboards. This isn't one judge having a bad day. This is a system protecting itself through intimidation, retaliation, and coordination, and the evidence proves it. She concluded by reading the witness impact statements, 7 people describing fear, humiliation, and harassment. Then she sat down. Hale nodded. "Thank you, Ms. Lange. Mr. Kimball, you may present Judge Trask's defense." Kimball stood. He was smooth, practiced, confident. "Commissioners, what you've heard this morning is a carefully constructed narrative designed to make my client look like a villain. But let's examine the facts. Mrs. Lange appeared in Judge Trask's courtroom with no attorney, no preparation, and a citation she claimed was impossible. Judge Trask heard her out and made a ruling. She disagreed. That's not bias. That's the judicial process." He clicked through a presentation showing Judge Trask's 18-year record. Commendations, community service awards, judicial evaluations. Ms. Lange wants you to believe that 11 cases out of thousands prove a pattern. But she ignored the hundreds of other cases where Judge Trask ruled fairly, regardless of who stood before him. She cherry-picked data to support her predetermined conclusion. He addressed the emails directly. "Yes, courthouse staff communicated about a persistent complainant. That's not conspiracy. That's coordination to ensure proper procedures were followed. And yes, some witnesses reported receiving traffic citations after agreeing to testify. But correlation is not causation. These were legitimate law enforcement actions, not retaliation." Kimball's closing was sharp. Ms. Lange is a sitting commissioner on this very body. She lost her case, and instead of accepting it, she weaponized her position to launch a crusade against a respected judge. That's not accountability. That's abuse of power. He sat down. Trask nodded slightly, as if agreeing with every word. Hale looked at Marissa. "Miss Lange, you have 30 minutes for rebuttal." Marissa stood again. This time, she didn't use the podium. She walked to the center of the room. "Mr. Kimball says I weaponized my position. Let me be clear about something. I didn't become a commissioner to investigate judges. I became a commissioner because I believe in accountability. And when I experienced what I experienced in Judge Trask's courtroom, I had a choice. Stay silent, or do what any citizen should do, document it and report it." She turned to face Trask directly. "Mr. Kimball wants you to focus on my motives, but motives don't change facts. The video is real, the transcripts are real, the emails are real, and the pattern is undeniable." She pulled out a document. "This is the maintenance log for courthouse camera number 12, the interior camera that supposedly malfunctioned on March 19th. According to IT records, that camera has operated continuously for 3 years without a single malfunction. Except for the exact 2 hours when I was in that courtroom. And when we requested the backup server data, guess what? It existed. The camera didn't malfunction. The footage was deliberately withheld." Murmurs in the gallery. Kimball started to stand, then sat back down. "Mr. Kimball says the witness citations were legitimate. Let me read you this. Maria Rodriguez, cited for failure to stop. Officer's report claims she rolled through a stop sign, but body cam footage, which we obtained through FOIA, shows her vehicle completely stopped for 4 seconds before proceeding. The citation was false. Deliberately false. To intimidate her." Marissa's voice rose slightly. "Kenneth Washington, property tax dispute. City claimed he owed back taxes, but his bank records show automatic payments for 6 consecutive years. The city corrected the error only after we threatened to subpoena their records." She listed each instance of retaliation, each false citation, each manufactured problem. This isn't judicial process. This is systemic corruption. And it happened because Judge Trask believed he was untouchable, because the system protected him, because people like me, black women with no power, aren't supposed to fight back. She paused, let the silence build. "But I did fight back, and I brought receipts." She sat down. The room was dead quiet. Hale conferred quietly with the other commissioners for 2 minutes. Then she spoke. "We'll hear from witnesses now. Ms. Rodriguez, please approach." One by one, the 7 witnesses testified. Each described their experience. Each confirmed the pattern. And under cross-examination from Kimball, each held firm. When the last witness finished, it was 3:30 p.m. Hale called a 30-minute recess. Marissa stepped outside the hearing room. Rodriguez approached her. "We did it. We actually did it." "Not yet. They still have to decide." "They will. That video doesn't lie." Marissa hoped she was right. At 4 p.m., the commissioners returned. Hale looked exhausted. "This panel will now deliberate. Ms. Lange, because you are both the complainant and a sitting commissioner, you are excused from deliberations. We will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to announce our decision." Marissa nodded. The hearing adjourned. She walked out of the building into the October cold and drove home. That night, she couldn't sleep. She replayed every moment of the hearing, every word she'd said, every piece of evidence presented. Had it been enough? Would 5 commissioners, people she worked with, respected, actually sanction one of their own? At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed. Text from Drake. "I've seen a lot of hearings. That was the strongest case I've ever witnessed. Get some rest. Tomorrow, justice happens." Marissa closed her eyes and tried to believe it. October 16th, 9 a.m. The hearing room was packed again. Marissa sat in the same seat. Trask sat across the aisle, face unreadable. The commissioners entered. Hale carried a folder, thick, official-looking. She sat down and opened it. "The Commission has reached a decision in Case 2024-JQC-447. I will read our findings." The room went silent. After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and legal arguments, this commission finds by clear and convincing evidence that Judge Harlan Trask violated Canons 1.2, 2.3b, 2.8a, and 2.16a of the Code of Judicial Conduct. Marissa's breath caught. Trask's face went rigid. Hale continued. Specifically, Judge Trask engaged in a pattern of disparate treatment based on race, gender, and represented status. He denied due process to pro se litigants. He exhibited impatience and discourtesy in violation of required judicial demeanor, and evidence shows he participated in coordination efforts to intimidate witnesses who cooperated with this investigation. She turned a page. The Commission imposes the following sanctions: public reprimand, suspension without pay for 90 days, effective immediately, mandatory completion of bias training and courtroom management education, probationary status for 24 months, during which time Judge Trask's courtroom proceedings will be subject to random review. Any further violations during probation will result in recommendation for removal. Gasps in the gallery. Cameras clicked. Trask closed his eyes. Hale wasn't finished. Additionally, this commission is referring the matter of witness intimidation to the State Attorney General for criminal investigation. Clerk Sienna Voss, Bailiff Rayburn, Officer Dane Hutchins, and Judge Camilla Reed are named as subjects of that referral. Reed stood up from her seat, face white. "This is outrageous." Hale's voice cut like a blade. "Judge Reed, you are not entitled to speak at this proceeding. Sit down." Reed sat. Hale concluded. "Judge Trask, you have the right to appeal this decision to the State Supreme Court. That appeal must be filed within 30 days. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel came down. The room erupted. Reporters surged toward Marissa. She stood, grabbed her folder, and walked out through a side door before they could reach her. Drake was waiting in the hallway. "You won?" Marissa leaned against the wall. "We won." Public reprimand, 90-day suspension, probation, criminal referral. Marissa, this is huge. Judges almost never face real consequences. You did that. We did that. You, me, the witnesses, everyone who refused to back down. Drake smiled. "Go home, rest, and prepare for the media circus. This is going to be national news by tonight." Marissa nodded. walked to her car, drove home in a daze. At 6 p.m., her phone started ringing. News outlets, colleagues from the nonprofit, friends she hadn't spoken to in months. She ignored them all. At 8 p.m., she turned on the television. The local news led with the story, "Breaking tonight, Circuit Court Judge Harlan Trask has been suspended for 90 days and publicly reprimanded by the State Judicial Qualifications Commission after a 6-month investigation into allegations of racial and gender bias." The investigation was initiated by Marissa Lange, a sitting member of the commission who appeared in Trask's courtroom earlier this year. They showed her photo, showed clips from the hearing, interviewed legal experts who called it unprecedented and a watershed moment for judicial accountability. Marissa turned off the television and sat in silence. She'd done it. The system had worked, slowly, painfully. But it had worked. The aftermath unfolded over weeks. Judge Trask filed an appeal to the state Supreme Court, as expected. Legal experts gave him minimal chance of success. The evidence was too strong, the findings too detailed. The Attorney General opened a formal criminal investigation into the witness intimidation conspiracy. Subpoenas went out to Voss, Rayburn, Hutchins, and Reed. 2 of them, Voss and Hutchins, resigned from their positions before being interviewed. The courthouse implemented new policies, complaint forms now available at every public counter, mandatory body camera retention extended to 180 days, statistical monitoring of case outcomes with quarterly public reports, and Marissa returned to her normal life. Or tried to. The nonprofit received calls from reporters asking about her performance, her character, her motives. Her supervisor fielded them professionally. "Ms. Lange is an exemplary employee. We support her fully." The commission received public records requests for everything related to her appointment, her cases, her votes. Chair Hale released a statement. "Commissioner Lange followed all ethical guidelines and recused herself appropriately. Her conduct was beyond reproach." But the whispers continued. At commission meetings, some colleagues avoided eye contact. At the courthouse, judges she'd never met watched her with suspicion. The system had absorbed the blow. Trask was suspended, policies changed, but the culture remained resistant. One afternoon in late November, 6 weeks after the hearing, Marissa returned to the courthouse to file paperwork for the nonprofit. She walked through the main entrance, past the security desk, and down the hallway toward the clerk's office. A temporary clerk sat at the desk, where Sienna Voss used to work. Young woman, early 20s, nervous energy. She looked up as Marissa approached. "Can I help you?" "I need to file these documents for tax-exempt status verification." The clerk processed them quickly, professionally. No attitude, no delay, just simple, proper procedure. Marissa thanked her and turned to leave. As she walked back down the hallway, she passed courtroom 3. The door was open. Inside, a different judge presided, Judge Trask's temporary replacement during his suspension. The courtroom was half full. A black woman stood at the podium presenting evidence about a parking citation. The judge listened, didn't interrupt, asked clarifying questions, reviewed the evidence, made a ruling, citation dismissed, procedural error by the officer. The woman thanked him and left, relief visible on her face. Marissa watched for another minute, then continued walking. The system wasn't fixed, but it was better. Incrementally. Imperfectly. But better. 3 months after the hearing, in January 2025, the state Supreme Court issued a 1-paragraph decision. Appeal denied. Commission findings affirmed in full. Judge Trask's suspension stood. His probation stood. And the message was clear. Judicial misconduct would have consequences. 2 weeks later, Trask announced his retirement, effective immediately. The press release cited personal reasons and a desire to spend time with family. But everyone knew the truth. He'd been broken. Not just by the suspension, but by the exposure. By having his conduct scrutinized, documented, and condemned in public. The retirement meant no further appeals, no drawn-out legal battles. Just an end. Marissa received an email from Maria Rodriguez. Ms. Lange, I saw the news. Thank you for everything. You gave us our voices back. She replied simply, You gave yourself your voice. I just made sure people listened. But the story didn't end cleanly. In February, the Attorney General's office announced plea deals for 3 of the 4 subjects in the witness intimidation investigation. Clerk Voss pled guilty to obstruction of justice, received 2 years probation. Officer Hutchins pled guilty to deprivation of rights under color of law, received 1 year probation and permanent loss of law enforcement certification. Bailiff Rayburn pled guilty to conspiracy, received 18 months probation. Judge Camilla Reed fought the charges. Her case went to trial. The jury deliberated for 6 hours and returned a verdict. Not guilty on all counts. Insufficient evidence to prove she'd directly participated in the intimidation scheme. Her emails showed knowledge and coordination, but prosecutors couldn't prove she'd actively directed the harassment. Reed kept her position on the bench, kept her reputation mostly intact, and, at a judicial conference 3 months later, she gave a speech about protecting judicial independence from politically motivated attacks. Marissa watched the video online and felt the familiar frustration. Partial justice. Some accountability, but not complete. Reed had escaped. The system had protected one of its own, even after everything. Judge Weston called her the next day. I saw the speech. Yeah. You okay? Marissa took a breath. I'm fine. We got Trask. We got policy changes. We got 3 convictions. Reed's 1 judge. The system's bigger than her. True, but it still stings. It does. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Weston said, You know what matters? 6 months ago, judges like Trask thought they were untouchable. Now they know better. You changed that. We changed it? Yes. But you started it. Don't forget that. On a Friday in late March, Marissa received a thick envelope in the mail. Return address, State Judicial Qualifications Commission. She opened it carefully. Inside, a new complaint. Case number 2025-JQC-089. Filed against Judge Harlan Trask, despite his retirement, for conduct that occurred before his suspension but was only recently reported. A note from Chair Hale was paperclipped to the cover page. Marissa, this came in last week. Different complainant, similar allegations, dates back to 2023. Looks like your investigation opened doors for others to come forward. Thought you should know. Patricia Marissa read the complaint. A Latino man describing his experience in Trask's courtroom. Interruptions. Dismissal without hearing. Fine assessed without evidence. The same pattern. But this time, the man had filed immediately, emboldened by news coverage of Marissa's case. She set down the complaint and stared at it for a long moment. The system was working. Slowly. Imperfectly. But people were speaking up, using their voices, demanding accountability, and that was worth everything. 6 months after the hearing, Marissa sat in her office at the nonprofit and reviewed compliance reports. Normal work. Ordinary tasks. The media attention had faded. The reporters had moved on to other stories. Life had returned to something resembling routine. Her phone buzzed. Email from investigator Carolyn Drake. Marissa, wanted to give you a heads up. Statistical monitoring data just came back from the courthouse. Sentencing disparity in traffic cases has dropped from 23% to 11% over the past 6 months. Not perfect, but significant improvement. The changes are working. CD. Marissa smiled. 11% wasn't 0, but it was progress. She replied, Thank you for everything you did. This wouldn't have happened without you. Drake wrote back immediately, This wouldn't have happened without you. You're the one who refused to stay silent. Marissa closed her laptop and looked out the window. Spring was arriving, trees budding, days getting longer. She thought about Judge Trask, retired now, reputation permanently damaged. She thought about the 7 witnesses who'd risked retaliation to tell the truth. She thought about Maria Rodriguez and Kenneth Washington, and the countless others who'd been dismissed and silenced before anyone bothered to document it. And she thought about the complaint sitting on her desk at home. Case 2025-JQC-089. Proof that the fight wasn't over, that the system still had work to do. But for today, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They'd won. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to matter. That evening, Marissa returned to the courthouse one final time. Not for business, just to see. She walked through the main entrance. The Code of Judicial Conduct placard still hung on the wall. She paused to read it again, same as she'd done 9 months earlier. Canon 2.3. A judge shall perform the duties of judicial office without bias or prejudice. Below it, someone had added a new placard. Courthouse Policy Update, effective October 2024. All judicial conduct complaints may be filed online, by mail or in person. Forms available at all public service desks. Retaliation against complainants or witnesses is prohibited and subject to criminal prosecution. Marissa touched the edge of the new sign, felt the smooth plastic under her fingers. Small changes. Policy updates. Statistical improvements. Not transformation. Just progress. She walked out of the courthouse, got in her car, and drove home. 2 weeks later, Marissa's phone rang at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Ms. Lange? A woman's voice, young, uncertain. Speaking. My name is Angela Morris. I'm a public defender. I've been following your case, the one against Judge Trask, and I need advice. Marissa sat up in bed. What kind of advice? I have a client who was in Judge Patricia Sullivan's courtroom last week. She's black. Pro C. Traffic violation. And the judge, Morris's voice wavered. The judge treated her exactly how Judge Trask treated you. Interruptions. Dismissal without hearing. I watched the transcript. It's the same pattern. Marissa was fully awake now. Have you documented it? I'm trying, but I don't know the process. I don't know how to build a case like you did, and I'm scared. I'm a public defender. I work in these courtrooms every day. If I file a complaint against a judge... You're afraid of retaliation? Yes. Marissa got out of bed, walked to her home office, pulled out a folder, the one she'd labeled Case 2024-JQC-447, template for future complaints. Inside, a step-by-step guide she'd written after the hearing. How to request transcripts, how to file FOIA requests, how to document patterns, how to build an evidence file that would withstand scrutiny. She'd written it because she knew this call would come eventually. Someone else would need help. Someone else would have to fight. Ms. Morris, I'm going to send you something. It's everything I learned during my investigation. Use it, adapt it, and if you need help navigating the process, call me. I'll walk you through it. Silence on the line. Then, thank you. I didn't think anyone would. I know, but you're not alone. Not anymore. Marissa hung up and opened her email. Attached the template document. Added a note. Angela, justice is slow. The system resists. But documentation wins. Stay focused on the evidence. Let me know if you need anything. Marissa Lange. She hit send. Then she opened her calendar and made a note. Follow up with Angela Morris. 1 week. The fight continued. 1 month later. Marissa sat in her usual seat at the Judicial Qualifications Commission's quarterly meeting. 5 commissioners around the table. Chair Hale presiding. Routine agenda. Budget review, case updates, policy discussions. Near the end, Hale added an item. Before we adjourn, I want to note that we've received 17 new complaints in the past quarter. That's up from an average of 6 per quarter over the previous 2 years. Several cite Commissioner Lange's case as inspiration for coming forward. Judge Weston spoke up. 17, that's a significant increase. It is, and most appear credible. We're going to need additional investigative resources. Another commissioner, the private attorney who'd questioned Marissa's motives months earlier, cleared his throat. Chair Hale, are we concerned this could become a flood? That every dissatisfied litigant will now file a complaint? Hale met his eyes. If they have evidence, they should file. That's the point of this commission. We exist to hold judges accountable. If that means more complaints, we handle them. We don't discourage people from using the system properly. The attorney nodded slowly. No further objections. Marissa said nothing. But inside, she felt something shift. The commission wasn't just accepting complaints anymore, it was encouraging them. The culture was changing. 6 months after the hearing, April 2025, Marissa's phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. Judge Patricia Sullivan announces retirement following preliminary investigation by Judicial Qualifications Commission. Sources say complaint filed by Public Defender Angela Morris alleges pattern of bias similar to Trask case. Marissa opened the full article. Read it twice. Then she texted Angela Morris. Saw the news. How are you holding up? Morris replied immediately. Terrified, relieved, grateful. Your template made this possible. Thank you. Marissa smiled. You did the work. I just showed you where to send it. Present day. 9 months after the hearing. Marissa walked into the courthouse on a routine Wednesday afternoon to file nonprofit paperwork. The building looked the same. Marble floors, high ceilings, the placard on the wall. But something was different. The clerks were professional, the security guards courteous, the atmosphere less hostile. She processed her paperwork and left. As she walked to her car, she passed a group of people entering the building. 3 women, 1 man, all carrying folders similar to hers. One of them caught her eye and smiled nervously. Are you Marissa Lange? Marissa stopped. I am. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm filing a complaint today. About a judge who treated me the same way Judge Trask treated you. I wasn't going to do it, but then I saw your case, and I realized, if she can fight, so can I. The woman extended her hand. Marissa shook it. What's your name? Claire Patterson. Good luck, Ms. Patterson. Document everything. Stay focused on the evidence, and don't let them intimidate you. I won't. The woman walked toward the entrance with her group. Marissa watched them go. Then she got in her car, drove home, and added a note to her calendar. Monitor. Case 2025-JQC --? Patterson versus unknown judge. Offer support if needed. The system was still imperfect, still resistant, still slow, but it was working. That night, Marissa sat at her kitchen table reviewing commission case files. Routine work, nothing dramatic, just the steady, unglamorous process of oversight. Her phone buzzed. Email from Chair Patricia Hale. Marissa, wanted to give you advance notice. We're receiving requests from other states asking about our complaint process reforms. Your case has become a template for judicial accountability nationwide. Several states are updating their procedures based on what we implemented here. Thought you'd want to know. PH Marissa read the email 3 times. Then she closed her laptop and walked to her home office. The case file still sat on the shelf, 5 inches thick. Transcripts, videos, emails, witness statements. Everything that had taken 6 months to compile and present. She pulled down a different folder, the one labeled Open Questions. Inside, 2 documents she'd never resolved. The first, an email from Clerk Sienna Voss to an unknown recipient, subject line FW Persistent Complainant. The recipient's name had been redacted in the FOIA release. IT claimed they couldn't identify the recipient from server logs. Marissa had requested clarification 4 times. Each time the response was the same. Technical limitations prevent identification. She didn't believe it. Someone had received that email. Someone higher up the chain. Someone who'd coordinated the entire defense. But without proof, she couldn't pursue it. The second document, courthouse security footage from March 19th, the interior camera that had allegedly malfunctioned. They'd recovered most of the footage from the backup server, but 10 minutes remained missing, 2:41 to 2:51 p.m., exactly the window when Marissa was being detained in the holding cell. IT claimed those 10 minutes were corrupted beyond recovery. Marissa suspected they'd been deliberately deleted, but again, without proof, she couldn't prove anything. She stared at both documents. 2 loose threads, 2 unresolved questions. Justice was partial. Progress was incomplete. The system protected itself even when held accountable, but it was better than it had been. Marissa filed the documents back in the folder, closed it, put it back on the shelf. Some questions would remain unanswered. Some conspiracies would stay hidden. That was the reality of fighting institutions. But she'd won enough. She turned off the light and went to bed. The next morning, Marissa woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Her heart raced. She grabbed her phone. The most recent text was from Chair Hale, time-stamped 6:47 a.m. Turn on the news, now. Marissa ran to the living room, turned on the television. Every local channel was covering the same story. Breaking overnight, federal investigation into courthouse corruption expanded to include unnamed high-level officials. Sources say the probe stems from evidence uncovered during the Trask judicial misconduct case. The FBI executed search warrants at multiple locations early this morning. The screen showed footage of FBI agents entering the courthouse, carrying boxes, seizing computers. Marissa's phone rang. Carolyn Drake. She answered. "Did you see?" "I'm watching right now. What's happening?" Drake's voice was tight with controlled excitement. "Remember that redacted email? The one where Voss forwarded your complaint to an unknown recipient? The Attorney General's office kept digging. They found the recipient." "Who?" "District Administrative Judge Helen Grayson. She's the presiding judge over all courtrooms in the district. She coordinates budgets, assignments, policies, and according to emails they just unsealed, she was the one who orchestrated the entire defense strategy. She told Trask to stall. She told Voss to delay records. She told Rayburn and Hutchins to handle the witnesses." Marissa sat down hard. "She's the one. She's the one. Federal charges, conspiracy, obstruction, civil rights violations. And here's the kicker. The missing 10 minutes of security footage? It was on her office computer. She personally deleted it. FBI recovered it from her hard drive this morning." "What's on it?" "You. In the holding cell. And Bailiff Rayburn threatening you while you're detained, telling you to drop the complaint or face consequences. All recorded. All preserved." Marissa closed her eyes. "That's why they couldn't find it. She had it the whole time." "Exactly. And now the FBI has everything. Emails, deleted files, communications showing a conspiracy that goes higher than anyone realized. Marissa, this is massive." The television showed a new image, Judge Helen Grayson being led from her home in handcuffs. Marissa stared at the screen. She'd thought the fight was over, thought justice had been served, partial but real. But the system had been hiding one more layer of corruption, one more conspirator, one more person who believed she was untouchable. Until now. Drake's voice pulled her back. "Marissa, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here." "The U.S. Attorney wants to talk to you. They're going to need your testimony for the federal trial. This case just went from state judicial misconduct to federal civil rights prosecution. Are you ready for that?" Marissa looked at the television, looked at Judge Grayson's face, shocked, humiliated, finally held accountable. "Yes, I'm ready."
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today. If you found the content helpful, please remember to like and subscribe so you won't miss our upcoming episodes. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. We are always here to listen.